Can you guys hear me now? I think I muted my unaware of the case against her. And I keep coming back to the same question. Why? Why would the family believe that ignorance is preferable to preparation? Because even when we are trying to protect someone we love, there comes a point when that person must understand the reality of the situation they are facing, especially when that reality involves a lengthy prison sentence and a legal process that may not produce the results the family wants. And this next clip I'm going to play for you demonstrates just how uncertain McKenzie appeared to be about even the most basic boundaries of her legal situation.
Yes, they can.
Who said that?
The girls in here.
That's aggravated murder. That charge is gone. That's not the big one. The mamma jamma is aggravated murder.
So I can't get that?
No.
Okay.
That's aggravated. Means you plan that shit out. And then you did it. Like,
So McKenzie asked whether she could be sentenced to death. Again, I'm not criticizing someone for being frightened while facing serious criminal charges, but I believe this clip is waiting. They're waiting for the judge's sentence, as I think when this call occurred. So anyone in that position would be terrified, of course. But Ohio did not permit the death penalty under the circumstances of McKenzie's case. She was not facing a capital prosecution. So how did she reach that point without understanding that? How do you go through an entire trial without knowing that's not a capital case? Why had someone, her attorneys, her family, or both, not clearly prepared her for the possible outcomes? This is more than a minor misunderstanding, in my opinion. It suggested McKenzie may have been existing inside an emotional reality in which every possible outcome remained vague, catastrophic, and undefined. And when someone is already emotionally unstable or frightened, dysregulated also, emotionally dysregulated, uncertainty can become its own form of torture. Yet instead of consistently grounding McKenzie in reality, the family often appears to respond by giving her reassurance. And that brings us to the next clip.
It was live streamed, I heard.
I don't know. I'm staying off social. Kenzie, I don't even know. I'm not going on there. I'm getting texts out the ass though that people can't even believe it. And they're so sorry, and oh my God, and what the hell, and what the fuck, and are you kidding me, and all that stuff, so.
That is true.
Yeah.
I heard it was live streamed.
I heard that too. No, because you can't talk. You can't control yourself, or I would. So. I don't know if it was or not. I don't care. I don't care what anybody has to say. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter.
We know you're innocent.
95% of the population does.
Yeah. They know you.
Okay. So, wait. 95% of people believe her or believe she is innocent? I think I was drinking water or something when I heard that, and I about spit it out, you know? Where did that number come from? There is no reliable polling that I am aware of showing that 95% of the public believes Mackenzie Shirilla is innocent. This sounds less like factual information, and more like emotional reassurance. And reassurance, reassurance is not inherently wrong. You want to, a mother speaking to her incarcerated daughter may naturally want to comfort her. But when comfort repeatedly replaces reality, it can become something else. It can create a protected emotional environment in which Mackenzie is encouraged to believe that almost everyone supports her, that the case against her is collapsing, and that eventual vindication may be just around the corner. Now, what happens if that does not occur? What happens if the appeals fail, and one already has? What happens if the conviction remains in place? What happens when the reassuring version of the future can no longer be maintained? That is where this becomes much more serious, because the Shirillas have not merely dealt with Mackenzie's anger, they have dealt with self-harm threats. And there is an important jail call in which Mackenzie and Natalie begin discussing one of those earlier incidents. Listen carefully to what happens when Mackenzie begins connecting that night to Dominic.
Mackenzie was from 2020. It was so long ago, too. I'm like, really, guys?
Oh, me and Dom arguing?
No, when they came to the house for the quote-unquote suicide visit.
I know, I remember that. Dom came to get me. Like later that
Mackenzie, I'm not talking about anything right now. Don't say anything about the call or anything.
What do you mean?
About your calls, but Dom's calls, because they're listening to conversations.
That has nothing to, it's not, well, what is that about saying Dom came to get me? Like, you're about to make me hang up and not talk to you. I'm already fucking here. Don't say that. I'm allowed to fucking say that. Dom
I just
came
don't
to
want
get
to talk about anything.
I'm allowed to talk about that. I'm allowed to talk about that.
We don't talk about it anymore.
I'm allowed to talk about it as much as I want because there's nothing to hide about it.
I know there's not.
Okay,
I just don't want to give them anything. Nothing.
That's not giving them anything. Like, what the fuck? Like, what is happening? I'm confused. Like, is this, like, are you okay? Like, why can't I say that? Like, that has nothing to do with anything.
I said anything.
So, what stands out to me in this exchange is Mackenzie's confusion. She knows exactly which incident Natalie is referring to. And she begins to explain that Dominic came and picked her up later that night. So this is her, quote unquote, self-harm threats night. I don't know how much I can say on YouTube myself. But Natalie immediately cuts her off and tells her not to discuss it. And Mackenzie does not seem to understand why. And she sounds puzzled and then frustrated because, as far as she knows, she is simply talking about something that happened. No one appears to have clearly explained to her why mentioning Dom or discussing the circumstances surrounding that night could potentially create a problem for her appeal. Now, I do want to allow for one possibility. It may be that Natalie and Mackenzie have not been permitted to have a truly private conversation since Mackenzie entered prison. Their calls may be recorded, their visits may be monitored, and Natalie may believe that she cannot safely explain the legal reasoning in detail. That's possible, of course. But even allowing for that, the result is still the same. Mackenzie is being told what she cannot say without being given enough information to understand why. And that matters because her parents continue to speak about the appeals as though success is almost inevitable. They are not preparing her for uncertainty. They are not openly explaining which facts may damage her case or why certain subjects must be avoided. Instead, Natalie manages the conversation in real time, stopping Mackenzie whenever she begins moving towards something potentially harmful, while Mackenzie remains confused about the rules she is expected to follow. And when Mackenzie does not understand those rules, she becomes angry. And I'm seldom on Mackenzie's side, but I would feel the exact same way. It's like, why can't I talk about this? She doesn't understand because she's not been informed. So, it's not necessarily, she becomes angry, not necessarily because, Natalie is trying to sabotage her appeal, but because she has not been told the full truth about what the appeal may depend upon, or how difficult that appeal may actually be. I also want to mention here that, in my opinion, this is an implied admission that Dom was involved in this incident beyond just coming to pick Mackenzie up afterward. I suspect that he tried to break up with her, or some other kind of perceived rejection from him occurred that triggered her rage and self-harm threats. Now, let's listen to the final clip.
Knew that she was going to be, that he was going to take care of her, like keep her safe, and like he was very protective of her.
Okay, so that is an enormously revealing statement, because when a family says that one teenage boyfriend, well, I think he was 20 at the time, something like that, but he's still young, is responsible for keeping another teenager safe, what exactly does that mean? Safe from other people or from bad decisions? Safe from emotional collapse? Safe from herself? Dom, was a young man. He was not a therapist, a crisis counselor, or a psychiatric counselor professional. Yet the family appears to have seen him as someone who could manage, stabilize, or regulate McKenzie when she was emotionally overwhelmed. That is an unfair burden to place on any young person. And if Dom truly occupied that role in McKenzie's life, then we must ask what happened when McKenzie believed she was losing him. We also have to ask who took over that role after Dominic was gone, because it appears to me that the family may now be attempting to regulate McKenzie in a different way. Not through Dom, through information, through reassurance, through the Innocence campaign, through promises of appeals, new evidence, public support, and the possibility that somehow this entire outcome will eventually be reversed. So I originally believed the Shirillas were keeping McKenzie in the dark because they feared her rage. I now believe the greater fear may be what happens if McKenzie loses hope. Steve Shirilla reportedly expressed concern at the hospital that McKenzie might attempt to take her own life because she had killed Dominic and Davion and attempted to do the same to herself. That is what the records suggest. Whether or not that statement was introduced at trial, it suggests that very early on, at least one member of the family understood the crash in connection with her desire to end it all if she couldn't have Dom. The family also knew about the previous self-harm threat. They knew Dom became involved that night, and they described Dom as the person who kept McKenzie safe. So when I look at the way the family communicates with her now, I do not see only denial. I see fear. And I see a family that may believe McKenzie cannot emotionally survive the full reality of what she did. The evidence against her and the possibility that she may spend much of her adult life in prison, but she may not fully appreciate the reality of what she did, and the possibility that she may spend the rest of her adult life, well, she is an adult now, but the rest of her life in prison. And that leads to an extremely difficult question. What do you do when telling someone the truth may trigger physical self-annihilation actions? Do you protect them by withholding reality? Or do you make them even more fragile by teaching them that reality must always be softened, avoided, or rewritten? Because hope can be essential, but false hope is unstable for anybody. If McKenzie's emotional survival depends upon believing that almost everyone thinks she is innocent, that the evidence is meaningless, or that an appeal will eventually set her free, what happens if that structure collapses? The family may believe they are keeping McKenzie alive, but they are also preventing her from ever developing the emotional strength to confront her sentence, accept what happened, and build any kind of meaningful life within the reality she now faces. There is also a very practical danger in keeping McKenzie inside this protected version of reality. This overprotection may not shorten her imprisonment. It may help make it permanent. McKenzie will eventually become eligible for parole, but parole eligibility, of course, is not the same thing as release. Her behavior in prison, her disciplinary record, her rehabilitation, her insight, her accountability, and the way she presents herself will all become important. Yet the family often communicates as though her release through an appeal or some future legal victory is practically inevitable. If Mackenzie believes that she has done nothing wrong, that almost everyone believes she is innocent, and that the conviction will eventually be overturned, where is the incentive to confront her behavior? Where is the urgency to remain infraction-free? Where is the motivation to participate sincerely in treatment, develop insight, accept responsibility, or demonstrate that she would be safe if released? The family may believe that preserving hope is helping Mackenzie survive prison, but there is a difference between hope and certainty. Realistic hope would sound like this, in my opinion. We will continue fighting for you, but you must also prepare yourself for the possibility that the conviction will stand. You need to behave. You need to use every available program. You need to show growth, maturity, accountability, and emotional stability because your future may depend upon it. Instead, the message often appears to be that vindication is coming and that Mackenzie simply needs to wait for everyone else to recognize that injustice. That may soothe her in the present, but years from now, the parole board will not be evaluating how fiercely her family defended her. It will be evaluating Mackenzie herself. And if she reaches that hearing without insight, without accountability, or with a continuing pattern of misconduct, the protection her family offered may become one of the very things that keeps her imprisoned. There's also another uncomfortable possibility. Perhaps Mackenzie remembers far more than the family publicly acknowledges. Perhaps the issue is not that Mackenzie does not know what happened. Perhaps the issue is that everyone around her is helping maintain a version of events that she can psychologically tolerate. I cannot prove what Mackenzie remembers. I can only tell you that I do not personally believe she has no memory or understanding of what occurred. But tonight's question is not really about memory. It is about the family system surrounding her. Why do they continually soften, redirect, reassure, and control? Why is Mackenzie apparently not being prepared for the possibility that her appeals may fail? Why does Natalie emphasize how many people supposedly believe her while saying Mackenzie has never seen the evidence? Why was Dominic expected to keep her safe? And why does the family appear so determined to preserve hope at any cost? My conclusion is that they may be deeply afraid that if Mackenzie comes to believe there is no way out, she will once again attempt and perhaps succeed at self-annihilation. That does not make their choices automatically right or wrong. It does, however, make the pattern much easier to understand. This may not be simply a family refusing to accept a conviction. It may be a family attempting to hold together someone they believe could collapse if the alternate reality disappears. But the question remains, is this protection, or is it another form of enabling that ultimately leaves Mackenzie less capable of surviving reality? So now, guys, I want to hear what you think about anything. Do you believe the Shirilla family is primarily afraid of Mackenzie's anger? Do you believe they fear she may harm herself if she loses hope, or a combination of the two? Or do you believe the information control is mainly about protecting the family's public narrative? Please share your thoughts in the comments. And if you found this analysis valuable, please like the video, share it, and subscribe to Motive and Method. Memberships are also open for anyone who would like to support the channel more directly. Thank you for being here. And so now let's open this up for a free conversation about anything, from the case to anything you guys want to talk about. Hi, Kelly. And President. I'm seeing some new names here too. Great. Kelly Ruth Ann. And thank you, Rebecca, again for your membership. I really appreciate you and all of my members and everyone that subscribes and shares and everything. It all helps. And Fire Rabbit. Love knows no words. So what do you guys think? Okay, Her parent, Bridget. Okay, so go here. So OWR is one of 2 multi-level minimum to death row prisons. They offer rehabilitation. Let me move this. Programs focused on reentry, freedom of the honor behavior. It's not a girls' camp. Absolutely. And so far she's failed, it seems to me, in keeping her nose clean. Madmen 604 says, thank you, Jay Blake. She says, I enjoy your perspective. Madmen 604 says, I agree. They are worried about self-harm, but that's something the prison assessed and watches out for this with all the inmates. She is actually safer there than with her parents. Great point, because I don't think she was that safe with her parents at all, because I don't know. They just seem like they've been clueless and don't know what to do, and doesn't appear that they ever reached out for professional help either. So, this off. Then Kelly, she's basically in a girls' camp. Can't she just look it up? You would think, Kelly, it's like, it doesn't take a lot of intelligence, can I say, or insight to know that not only can you look up what it takes to get parole, but what bad behavior does to your chances for parole. It's almost like she thinks she's getting out. In my opinion, she's going to be shocked when she's denied for appeal the first time, and probably for many times afterward if she doesn't straighten up. So, yeah, she says it's like a negligent cognitive dissonance. Holy moly, never considered that as part of potential abuse of a child, right? I don't know. I don't know how to pronounce that, but yes, I'll put it up here. But yeah, absolutely. Lady Zoe Grace 6970 says, you make some good points. However, I think McKenzie is adjusting to her present situation. When she is forced to face her situation, she already has found a coping mechanism. What coping mechanism, if you don't mind? So whatever she's found in prison, maybe? Could be. Oh, good point, Madmen, I'm sorry. Who says, I suspect the parents worry she will turn her rage on them and disclose family secrets unless they stay in control of the story, especially if she is in counseling. Yeah, I thought of that too. That is possible, because I won't speculate publicly about this, but a lot of people have said things about that warm milk thing. I don't know it's creepy. I don't know what to make of that, but well, I don't like milk anyway, let alone warm milk. But if I called my father in the middle of the night when I was a teenager or any age and asked him to bring me warm milk, he'd probably say, get your dang self up and make your own warm milk. What do you think I am? No, my dad was sweet. If I was sick, he probably would. But other than that, no way. So, yeah, Ruth Ann, who says she is so rude to her mom. She is very rude to Natalie. I agree. Hey, Ruth Ann, you said you were waiting over on the one live that was scheduled. Maybe I'm doing this wrong. I'm new at StreamYard, so I was always assuming it actually goes to the one that is scheduled. So I didn't realize. I'll have to check into that. I'm sorry that you were waiting over there. I think you were here at the very beginning too, and then you probably went over there to see if anything was happening to the scheduled one. Yeah, Kelly says 95 of the population thinks you're guilty, lady. Absolutely, it's the exact reverse. Hello, WB, FN, FE. Fascinated by what you have to say about the Shirillas. Thank you, Rabbit. And when I go in, every time, there's so many angles to this that I keep finding another layer. From a communication and narrative and framing perspective, it's a subject that keeps giving and giving and giving. I don't know that there'll ever not be something that I can take another angle on as well. So it's really amazing. Yeah, thank you guys for their, when you said it's not working, it's like, dang. But instead of, usually I would get nervous, the volume. Usually I just continue on because I'd be nervous, but I happened to look and it had like like an X or a line through my name on the screen. And I'm going, oh my gosh, I'm muted. I'm glad I didn't go all the way through it. So, anybody else? So, So, love knows no words. I think they may be keeping her safe, but if they continue down the path, this path, she will never accept responsibility, show remorse, and will never be eligible for release. I totally agree. Love knows no words. Absolutely. And that's why I say she's going to be shocked. I know she's going to be shocked at her first parole hearing, which they say in Ohio that you're never released on your first parole date. So she can probably spend at least 5 or so years beyond that, whenever, I don't know when her second parole date would be. But I would not like to be in there at all. So there's that. I'd be chafing at that, I think. Great question, Fire Rabbit. Sometimes I've wondered if her parents actually believe the lies they're telling her as well. I think that the great, not the great thing, but the interesting thing about the mind is you can kind of talk yourself into any belief if you repeat it. And that's what's fascinating itself about communication. And that's how, I wouldn't want to use the word mind control, but in advertising, for instance, they keep you watch something and they keep repeating the same buzzwords and the same buzzwords. And before you know it, you're believing what's being said, because it sinks down into your subconscious. So they may believe what they're saying, that, it's not, their baby, what they can consider her their baby, I guess, that she shouldn't be there and she didn't do this. But we know by the documents that I did say in the video or earlier in this presentation that, they knew it's not only likely, but probable. They knew that she tried to take all of their lives that day. And hi, Roxy. Welcome. Thank you for joining us. Welcome. Oh, okay, Kelly. Yeah, thank you. Gotta let out the Great Dane, St. Bernard, and Basset Hound out. Stay safe, everyone. Thank you so much. I love dogs. Thank you. Talk to you soon. And then she said, I used to think Steve denied the self-exit questions because he worked for a Catholic institution in a heavily Catholic area. and the shame that brings. But now I just think he's a blatant liar. I have to agree with that. I think he really is too. And that's ashamed. That I can say, like, liars, lying liars. That's my big pet peeve, but my feeling about that is a lot stronger. I can't understand blatantly lying like that, especially since you know everything is in the documents. So you're going to be found out in your lies, but that apparently doesn't matter to the Shirillas. So, yeah. So, yeah, I'm just looking at comments here. That could be, what is this? Lady Zoe Grace, 6970. I don't think she meant to hit the wall. I think she was doing a fast and furious move with the car and she failed. That's a possibility. Another possibility is you watch Samantha Benigno. I have trouble pronouncing that, from I Don't Belong Here channel. She's a psychologist, clinical psychologist and everything. She believes that it was on purpose because she hit a rage, and it was because she has really said that she believes McKenzie's borderline personality disorder. And the worst thing about the biggest trait about someone with that personality disorder is they react terribly to abandonment. It's like their whole world is ending. And so if something happened in that car that made her decide, that's it, I'm taking us all, and even Davion, which I think it was an accident, Davion. I think she might have been kind of jealous. Maybe Davion was taking up too much of Dom's time. Or maybe, I know he was staying with Dom. And so maybe they said, a speculation, but maybe they were just wanting her to drop them off and for her to go on home. And she hit a rage. And at the time that she did it, she may have really not totally understood that the repercussions of what she was doing, that they would all maybe be unalived, gone. That's a possibility. I know some people can go in such a rage that they don't even know what they're doing. They don't remember anything they're doing when they're in a rage, which is scary. Yeah, Roxy, I agree. Roxy says, I believe it was white hot rage. I tend to agree with that. I just think for you to hold the pedal, what did they say, all the way, the gas pedal, all the way to the floor for that, however many seconds it took to get up to that speed and hit the building. It's like, oh my goodness. Yeah. Oh yeah, me too, Ruth Ann. Samantha always has a very interesting perspective. And it's psychologically based, so that's always interesting as well. Love Knows No Words. Okay, so Love Knows No Words says, I think she dissociated from reality and just was incapable of acknowledging the consequences of that moment. Yeah, I tend to agree. And so when the parents say that you should have heard, like Steve was talking, you should have heard what came out of her when she found out, when we had to tell her Dom was gone. I don't doubt that, because at the time, maybe she did plan to take all three of them, or she didn't really appreciate, she was just mad in the moment and that happened. But regardless, now she's in prison, but at that time she was in the hospital and she lost what they said was the love of her life. Oh, good point, Ruth Ann. Ruth Ann says, I do too. I think it was rage. I think she said she saw black, because if she said she saw red, it would prove she didn't. Oh, great point. Yes. Yeah. Because I'm thinking it just went black. What do you And I don't know if that's the way loss of memory works anyway, if she wanted to, pretend like she'd lost her memory. Yeah. Thank you. She says, I looked up DMDD. Seems it's only diagnosis given to minors 6 to 18, but develops into major depressive disorder, generalized anxiety, and persistent irritability, baselines for cluster B personalities. Yeah. And the next step, then, a lot of the times, what I've read, it can go when you're an adult, because I guess they won't diagnose a young person, a teenager, with any kind of personality disorder because the brain is still developing until 25 for the frontal lobe. But there's a good chance that by this time, McKenzie would fit borderline personality disorder as well. So, and it's sad. I mean, because you have to get counseling, but it's not like something you can take medication for only. And, but so yeah, thank you for that. Yeah, Roxy, I agree too with this. Roxy says she was enraged because Davion was a new friend and Dom was experiencing new horizons beyond Kinsey. I agree that makes the most sense. So when Steve says, I can prove that, or whatever he's going off on about, that if she wanted to take Dom's life because she was angry or whatever, then why was Dom in the car? Or, why was Davion in the car? Well, I really don't believe that was a coincidence. I believe something happened that spurred her off. Maybe she didn't want to take, I had read on some show, they said that originally Davion didn't want to go with, wasn't going to ride with them. He was going to ride with somebody else. And the last minute he changed his mind, unfortunately for him and for their families and everything. But of course, who would have thought that would happen? But oh, good point. Love knows no words. Who says Chris Cuomo and others think she had to be, to run that car into the wall. But I disagree. I do too. She could have been, but it could have been just such a rage, and she was used to just raging like this and doing all kinds of things. Well, we know fisticuffs with teachers. I still go on about that because I can't believe that Natalie actually said that in that interview. Fisticuffs with teachers, like it was nothing. You're like in physical fights with a teacher, like the teacher's not fighting back. You're actually trying to beat up your teacher, usually with your fists. That's what that means. So it's like, oh my gosh. So yeah, she had no bounds on her. Oh my gosh, I did not know this. Mrs. JJ Cruz, there's going to be a fundraiser for her tonight on TikTok. I think that'll feed into her family's delusions. Yep, I agree. I did not know. I do know that there's a fan club that believes she is, innocent or didn't, and not guilty at least, but so, and Shirley, yeah, that good point. Good point. And Shack Lady 3549. I apologize. The print is a little bit small here, so I'm having trouble reading some. She says, Kenzie perhaps thought she was immortal, that nothing or no one could ever harm her. Part of her delusion. Yeah, that's probably part of it as well. I agree. Ruth Ann says, I've heard Davion went with them because they were fighting and he thought if he was with them, McKenzie wouldn't do anything. That is a very big possibility. I heard somewhere, well, wasn't it in the emails that Davion had blocked her or something? So he didn't even want to communicate with her, which, I could be wrong. It could have been somebody else that she was referring to, but yeah. Oh my gosh, Lady Zoe Grace, I haven't heard that. Let me pull this up. she says, the first time my jaw fell hard was when Mackenzie talked about how her sister would have to carry her baby. Oh my gosh. Entitlement isn't even a word for something like that. Oh my gosh. And Ruth Ann says they scheduled their fundraiser at the same time as a Russo's fundraiser. You know, that's a kick in the slap in the face or whatever you want to call that to the Russo family, to the victim's family. See, Ruth Ann, we learn something new every day. Ruth Ann hasn't heard that either. Machiavellian. God, yeah, absolutely. Oh my God, that scheduling against the Russos is Machiavellian. I always have trouble pronouncing that. Absolutely. But it, you know, doesn't it kind of reflect how the Shirillas view the victims' families? Because they certainly don't seem, they can talk a good game. Natalie can talk a good game, but in reality, they want their baby to be fine, and that the other victims don't matter, is what it sounds like to me. Yep, exactly. Love knows no bounds. She says, you better believe all the victims' families and friends will be at that first parole hearing fighting against her release. Absolutely. I would be. Absolutely. Yeah, and also love knows no words. I feel so angry at the Shirillas because their public campaign has to be compounding the suffering for the victims' families. They claim to have compassion, but they don't. I totally agree. Yep. Yeah. Man, it's just, I always learn so many new things from you guys, because you guys know, a lot of you know the details of the case more than I do. I mean, I dig into as far as I need to do my analysis, but I haven't listened to or read. I'd rather listen than read all the emails, because it's just a lot to read. And but even then, listening to it is a chore. And knowing how McKenzie totally blew up like in seconds, and Dom was just amazingly patient, because I would be like, I'm out of here, you know, but she wouldn't let him. So, but yeah. Lady Zoe Grace says, cluster B for sure. That's cluster B personality. How will they address this in the jail? Will she get counseling, meds? Is she refusing to work because her parents are giving her goodies and needs? They have got to step back. Absolutely. They're still like jumping to her every demand. Her parents are. And that's unfortunate. It's really, it's amazing. I understand you loving your child, and you'll always love your child, no matter their age, no matter what they did. But you can love them and still hold them accountable and have them accept the responsibility for their actions. So, okay. It's about, what is it? Been on here about an hour. So we probably should wrap it up soon. Anybody else got anything before we say goodbye? Have you seen Dwayne Flanagan's latest video? It's so sad. She kept crying. No, I'm going to have to see that. I haven't even heard of that. And Karen, not a Karen, says, this family outrages me. Totally agree. They are enabling her and are afraid of her self-harming. Both of her parents are completely delusional. I totally agree. And, it's no wonder where she's gotten hers from. Because what is it? The apple doesn't fall far from the tree. You know what, John Courtney, we'll have to ask any legal expert about this, which I am not, but he wants to know, can they bring charges against parents for allowing her to drive with pots? I believe they are glad that she is in jail, so they are not charged. That could be. And also, John, I've also wondered if why they're just denying everything is not only for her to get parole, but they don't want to be charged for negligence by maybe the victims' families, because they knew what a problem McKenzie was and how she had these personality things going on, and they did nothing to protect it. And in fact, if you watch the very last video I published yesterday, they, it kind of really shows that they knew, they enlisted Dom to take care of her and to, look after her, to keep her safe. And it's like, he didn't know what to do with that. That's a huge burden for a young man, or for any man, or for any woman for that matter. You don't do that to somebody, in my opinion. So, and Lady Zoe Grace True says, so many people continue to be hurt by this young woman. Yes, they absolutely do. This comment, unfortunately, there was no proof that from a medical professional that she actually has POTS. So they wouldn't be able to prove that they allowed her to drive with it, because legally it's not a diagnosis. That makes sense, unfortunately. Okay, what did you want to, Lady Zoe Grace said, I just want to say a quick word about Mackenzie's sister. OMG. Lady Zoe Grace, are you referring to her wanting her sister? She said her sister will have her baby for her. I was like, I would say the same thing. OMG. What is going on here? I agree, Jen Pookie. She says, in my opinion, the parents are scared of Mackenzie. I do believe that too. I mean, they're safer from her now, but people have speculated, do they not want her to open her mouth about their hidden, their secrets and things like that? That's a possibility. Okay, so I guess, you want to go to four, like just a couple more minutes, we'll wrap this up. I do want to say before I say goodbye, it's like, I just love the community we're building. You guys are just so great and respectful and kind, and I really appreciate it. Yeah, John Courtney, the school has records of her. Yeah. Lady Zoe Grace says, I call out to people with sons, teach them about setting boundaries, seeing red flags, and being okay to run away. Yep, I agree. And okay. Thank you for stopping in, Danny, the magic. And well, in a few years, she'll blame her parents. Bookmark this. Absolutely, Roxy. Yeah, run fast and far, and he really did. His Dom's brother said he did care about Mackenzie. He loved, they had been together for years. And it does seem in the messages that in the past year or so, before the crash, maybe a couple years, it just got worse and worse with her. So whether it was her personality disorder got worse, I think that got worse, but I just think she probably got away with so much with him that she just kept doing it and it just got worse and worse. Okay, guys. Oh, thank you for being a new sub. The Shirillas are a train wreck. Thank you, Jen Pookie, for becoming a sub. I really appreciate you and all of you. Yeah, that's true. Danny the Magic. I'll just say Danny the Magic because I can't read these smaller screens. He says, I think that happens. It won't get better. Yeah, exactly. Oh, yeah. Lady Zoe Grace. I think in a few years she will take the path of Casey Anthony and claim the father SA'd her. I would not be a bit surprised at all. And that Casey Anthony, oh, that's a different subject. A few years ago, she did this. They did a documentary where she was talking, and I didn't even watch it. It's like, I'm not going to sit for however long for her to lie continuously. I'm just not. On that note, guys, I'm going to say goodbye. Thank you so much for joining me. Let me know if there is has this been a continuing thing that the few live streams I've had aren't on where it's scheduled? Because if so, then I could find out if I can, address that so that nobody has to miss it. And I know you were in the first one, Ruth Ann, originally. So maybe you just went over there and said. So thank you, John Courtney. Thank you for visiting. Thank you all for everybody, your memberships, your subscriptions, everything, memberships. And of course, please remember, share, subscribe if you haven't already. And thank you, Lady Zoe Grace. She says, I just found you and I'm very glad. I'm so glad you did too. Thank you so much. My heart is always full when I see your guys' comments. And I do read, I try to read every comment and I try to at least heart the comments. Oh, thank you, Gypsy Mom 8431. She said, damn it, I'll rewatch. Always a great analysis. Thank you. And have a great day, a great time, or a great weekend as well, Ruth Ann and Roxy. Motive. There is still an open live that is still waiting for you to start. Oh my gosh, I'm going to have to check into that. I don't want people waiting over there because I'm in StreamYard because it's easier to show your screen and stuff like that on StreamYard, which is why I don't just go live from YouTube. I assume that it automatically hooked it up, but now I know better. Thank you for letting me know, Ruth Ann. Goodbye. Goodbye, everyone. See you in the next one.